Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today, we're going to be tackling the rising tensions in the Red Sea.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, how the Houthi movement's growing power is impacting, you know, global trade and security.
Right.
We're going to be looking at this article from Investor titled Red Sea in Crisis, the Growing Threat of Houthi Attacks Uncovered.
Yeah, this is a really important topic,
It is.
especially given, the Red Sea is a major shipping route.
Oh, absolutely.
Like a huge amount of goods pass through there every day.
Right.
And, you can only imagine what would happen to the economy if things really went bad.
Yeah, if things went south.
Yeah.
And the article, like right away, it talks about, these potential disruptions and all these recent Houthi attacks targeting oil tankers.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that really stood out to me
Uh-huh.
was the potential for, environmental disaster.
Right.
If one of these tankers was hit the wrong way,
Oh, for sure.
what kind of impact could we be looking at?
I mean, a spill in the Red Sea would be, catastrophic.
Really?
Think about it.
Yeah.
This delicate ecosystem,
Right.
all the coral reefs and, the marine life.
Right. All the different types of marine life
Yeah.
and, the coastal communities
Exactly.
who depend on a healthy sea.
It would be so bad.
Yeah.
The damage immediately would be horrible, but then the long-term consequences could take decades to, reverse.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a scary thought.
it is.
And it seems like the U.S., they took those threats pretty seriously.
They did.
They launched airstrikes on Houthi positions in Yemen.
Yep.
But the Houthis didn't back down at all.
Oh.
They declared a holy war against the West,
Yeah.
targeting the U.S. specifically.
Yeah.
It seems like they're really digging in.
Yeah.
Does this show like a bigger change in their strategy?
It's possible
Oh,
to
yeah.
really understand what's going on. I think we need to look at the Houthis' background.
Okay.
So they evolved from this local rebellion in northern Yemen,
Okay.
and they're rooted in the Zaidi Shia sect of Islam. And it's one of the earliest branches of Shia Islam.
I see.
And over time, they've become this powerful force
Oh, wow.
in the country.
In the country.
Yeah.
Okay, and so the article, it mentions Iran
Right.
as a key supporter,
Yeah.
providing military training weapons and even strategic guidance.
Uh-huh.
So is it fair to say that the Houthis are basically a proxy for Iran in the region? I think that's kind of a simplification.
Okay.
You can't deny the support from Iran,
Right.
but the Houthis have their own goals too.
Right.
They're fighting against, Western influence,
Right.
especially with the Saudi-led coalition being involved in Yemen.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
And so leading this is Abdul Malik al-Houthi.
Right.
And the article describes him as a crucial figure
He is.
in shaping the group's ideology and their ambitions.
Definitely.
So it sounds like he's really running a tight ship
Yeah.
and gaining control over huge areas of Yemen,
Huge.
including the capital.
Zanasa.
Yeah. What's it like actually living under Houthi rule?
The article paints a pretty bleak picture.
Yeah.
You're talking total control of information,
Wow.
heavy surveillance, and a climate of fear.
Oh, gosh.
Just to maintain order.
Wow.
People have compared it to a totalitarian regime.
Really?
Yeah.
The story of Fatima al-Isar,
Right.
she's a Yemeni exile,
Yeah.
really drove that point home for me.
Oh, yeah.
She talked about how even just private conversations
Right.
could be monitored.
It's crazy.
That must be so oppressive to feel like you're constantly being watched.
Totally.
And it's not just the surveillance.
Yeah.
Airstrikes are normal.
Yeah, it's terrifying,
Mm.
but it's normal.
Yeah, a normal part of life in Houthi-controlled areas.
Yeah.
And the humanitarian crisis is already so bad,
Horrible.
with millions of people displaced,
Millions.
facing starvation and disease.
It's awful.
The children especially,
Yeah.
they're in a really dire situation.
They are.
The article also mentions that the Houthis are using child soldiers,
I know.
which is just heartbreaking.
It's awful.
To think about these kids being forced or tricked
Yeah.
into fighting for this cause.
Right.
It's really disturbing.
It is.
So where did this all even begin?
Right.
How did Yemen end up like this?
Well, the turning point was back in 2014
Okay.
when the Houthis captured Sana'a.
Right.
They forced the internationally recognized government into exile,
Okay.
and that started a civil war.
Wow.
And then to make things more complicated,
Yeah.
a Saudi-led coalition got involved,
Okay.
backed by Western powers,
Including the U.S.
including the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I imagine that intervention, while it was meant to push back against the Houthis, probably contributed to the humanitarian crisis too, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
The conflict has become so complex.
Okay.
And then in 2023, there was a twist.
Okay.
Saudi Arabia and Iran reached a détente.
Really?
Yeah. The Saudis, they were exhausted from all the fighting.
Years of it.
Years of it.
Yeah.
And they couldn't beat the Houthis decisively.
Right.
So they shifted their focus
To what?
to finding a peaceful resolution.
Okay, so wait.
Yeah.
2 of the major players in the region decide to make peace.
Right.
And that somehow makes the Houthis stronger.
It seems counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but that's what happened.
Wow.
The détente meant that the Houthis weren't facing the full force of that coalition anymore.
I see.
And that gave them a chance to solidify their control even more.
Wow. And they definitely haven't just been sitting around.
No, they haven't.
They've been expanding their military,
Yeah.
getting drones, rockets, even underwater weapons.
Uh-huh.
And it seems like they're getting bolder, too.
For sure.
Like when they seized the Galaxy leader,
Right?
that ship linked to an Israeli businessman.
Yeah. What a statement.
What was the message there?
That incident really got people's attention.
Yeah.
It shows how audacious they're getting,
Okay.
how willing they are to target international interests.
I see.
And it's a clear sign of their anti-Israel stance, which is a core part of their ideology.
Yeah, and that's a good transition into talking about the ideology itself.
Yeah.
So the article talks about how the Houthis position themselves as defenders of the Muslim world
Right.
against Western aggression
Right.
and Israeli influence
Mm-hmm.
and Abdul Malik al-Houthi.
Yeah.
It seems like he's really cultivated this image,
He has.
casting himself as this leader of an Islamic revolution.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a narrative that resonates with certain people,
Okay.
especially those who feel like they're marginalized
Right.
or disenfranchised.
I see.
Yeah, the article suggests that the Houthis draw a lot from Iranian ideology.
Oh,
They see themselves as part of this bigger movement
okay.
to challenge Western dominance.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's not just Yemen they're interested in.
Right. Right.
There's support for Palestine, the battle for Jerusalem.
Uh-huh.
It's more than just talk.
It is.
It suggests they want to like reshape the whole region.
Yeah, they have a much bigger vision.
Wow.
And calling themselves leaders of an Islamic revolution,
Right?
taking cues from Iran,
Right.
it adds another layer to
But
everything.
it does.
It's powerful, you know?
Yeah.
It resonates with those who feel like the system is against them.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have a group with this powerful ideology,
Yeah.
growing military power.
Right.
And they control this really important trade route.
Uh-huh.
It seems like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it does.
Is the international community doing anything?
I think there's a sense of urgency,
Okay.
but no one's sure what to do.
It's like they're stuck.
Yeah, the conflict's become a proxy war with all these big players trying to control things.
Right. All these global powers.
This makes it so hard to find a solution.
to even negotiate.
Exactly.
And then there's the humanitarian crisis.
Right.
It makes everything so much more urgent.
Yeah. Millions of Yemenis are caught in the middle.
Millions.
Millions.
Wow.
They're facing unimaginable hardship.
It's hard to even fathom.
I know Fatima El-Sar's story
Okay.
about life under Houthi rule,
Uh-huh.
the surveillance, the fear, the airstrikes.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder of the human cost of this conflict.
It is. And we can't forget about the children,
No, absolutely not.
the child soldiers.
That's horrific.
It's a brutal reminder of what war does to innocent lives.
Right. These kids are having their childhood stolen from them.
They're being forced into something they don't understand.
Exactly. And often left with just unimaginable trauma.
Yeah, it's so sad.
It is.
It really puts things into perspective.
For sure.
It's easy to get caught up in all the politics and the strategy.
Mm.
But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's real people who are suffering.
Real people.
Their lives are in chaos.
They are.
Their futures are uncertain.
It's terrible.
What is the international community's responsibility here?
They can't just sit back and watch.
No,
There's a responsibility to act,
to do something.
not just to deal with the political fallout,
Right.
but to help the Yemeni people.
Okay.
Humanitarian aid is crucial,
Yeah.
but it's not a long-term solution.
It's not a fix.
No.
So what can be done
Right.
is a peaceful resolution even possible?
With a group like the Houthis,
Yeah,
that's the big question.
it is.
Some experts say we need to be more diplomatic,
Okay.
talk directly to the Houthis.
Try to find common ground.
Right. But others believe that military pressure is the only way.
To force them to negotiate.
Exactly.
But we've seen what military intervention can do.
Yeah.
It can make things worse.
It can escalate the humanitarian crisis.
Destabilize the region even more.
Right. It's a difficult balance.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like there are any easy answers.
No, not at all.
But one thing's for sure right.
What's that?
This can't go on.
The current situation is unsustainable.
It's like an open wound.
It is.
Impacting the region and the world.
The whole world.
Yeah. It really shows how complicated things are.
Yeah.
This mix of ideology, geopolitics, and human suffering.
It's
It is, as we head into the final part of this deep dive,
Okay.
let's focus on the future of Yemen.
Okay.
Will the Houthis keep getting stronger?
Right.
Or could things change?
Good question.
What role will the international community play?
Yeah.
And most importantly,
Yeah.
is there any hope for peace?
Right. For the people of Yemen who have suffered so much.
Yeah. It's hard to say what will happen, but
I know. It's like we're trying to predict the future.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But given what we've discussed,
Uh-huh.
are there any, likely scenarios for Yemen?
Well, one possibility is that the Houthis,
Okay.
they've had some wins recently.
Right.
And they've got that breathing room from this Saudi-Iran deal.
Oh, the detente.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they could really solidify their control over Yemen.
Okay.
They might even try to take more territory,
Really?
expand their reach south.
That doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't.
Wouldn't that just drag out the conflict?
Yeah, it would probably make the humanitarian crisis even worse. It would also raise concerns about the Red Sea
Okay.
and the security of global trade.
Right. And, if the Houthis were to take control of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait,
Oh, yeah. The what?
it's a narrow passage.
Okay.
It connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden.
Yeah.
It's a really important choke point for shipping.
I see.
If the Houthis got a hold of that,
Yeah.
any disruption would be a big problem.
For the global economy?
For the whole world.
Wow. Okay. And something like that would definitely bring in other countries.
Oh, yeah.
We've already seen the U.S. take military action.
Right.
Wouldn't that risk a bigger conflict?
It could.
Especially with countries like China and Russia being involved.
Yeah. It's a risk.
It is.
But there's always a chance
Of what?
a peaceful settlement,
Really?
however unlikely.
Okay, so what would that even look like?
Well, it would take a lot of compromise
From everyone?
from everyone.
Okay.
The Houthis, the Yemeni government, and the Saudi-led coalition.
They'd all have to give something up. Yeah, and they'd have to commit to sharing power.
Right.
And they'd need to deal with the root causes of the conflict.
So things like economic inequality, political marginalization,
Yeah.
historical tensions between different groups.
Exactly. All of that.
That's a lot.
It is.
A lot to ask.
It would be huge if they could achieve a peace agreement.
Yeah.
They'd need a level of trust and willingness to compromise that we haven't seen yet.
And even if they did reach an agreement,
Yeah.
wouldn't there still be problems?
Oh, of course.
Like rebuilding Yemen,
Yeah.
physically and socially.
It would be a massive undertaking.
A huge task.
Huge.
Yeah.
It would need tons of investment.
In what?
Infrastructure, education, healthcare, economic development.
Right.
And that's just the physical stuff.
Right. The material things.
Yeah. They'd also need to work on reconciliation
Okay.
and healing from the trauma,
Yeah.
the divisions.
From years of fighting.
Exactly.
So the international community would have to help
Yeah, they'd need to step up.
to support rebuilding.
For sure.
But ultimately, isn't it up to the Yemeni people?
It is.
They're the ones who have suffered the most.
Yeah.
And they'll decide what their country looks like.
They will?
Well, this deep dive has really opened my eyes.
It's been a lot to take in.
It has. We've looked at the Red Sea and how vital it is
To the whole world.
to global trade, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And we've talked about the Houthis and how they've risen to power.
And how they're causing problems.
Right. And we can't forget about the impact on the Yemeni people.
No, absolutely not.
So where does that leave us?
I think it leaves us with a difficult reality.
Okay.
The future of Yemen is uncertain.
Yeah.
The decisions made in the next few years
Why?
will have a huge impact
On everyone?
on Yemen, on the region, and on the world.
It's a big deal.
It is.
And as we wrap up,
Yeah,
I think it's important to remember how complicated this situation is.
absolutely.
It's a conflict with no easy answers.
No.
It shows us the true cost of war.
The human cost.
Yeah, and it's a test for the international community.
Right. Can they prevent and resolve these kinds of conflicts?
It's a big question.
It is.
And with that in mind,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with a thought.
Okay.
What can each of us do
Right.
to raise awareness about Yemen,
To advocate for peace.
to help the people who are suffering?
The answers might be hard to find,
Yeah,
but the questions are important.
they are. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Red Sea tension.
My pleasure.
We hope this has helped you understand this complex and ever-changing situation.
I hope so.